You do not need a new life. You need a new mindset. Because the life you keep repeating is the result of the thoughts you keep protecting. Change the thought, change the decision. Change the decision, change the habit. Change the habit, change the future. And if you do not shift your mind, nothing else will shift for you. This book is not about motivation. It is about mental replacement. It is about destroying the beliefs that keep you stuck and installing the beliefs that build momentum, discipline, confidence, and results. Listen closely, because one shift can change everything overnight. Chapter 1. Stop thinking like a victim. You have a choice. That is where this chapter begins. Not with your pain, not with your history, not with what was done to you. It begins with your choice. Because pain is real, but permanent powerlessness is a decision. And the moment you stop confusing the two, your life starts changing. Victim thinking is one of the most dangerous mindsets on earth. It sounds harmless at first. It sounds like explanation. It sounds like honesty. But underneath it, there is paralysis. Underneath it, there is blame. Underneath it, there is a person who keeps saying, it's because of my parents, it's because of my money, it's because of the economy, it's because of where I grew up, it's because of the timing, it's because of society. No, you have a choice. That's the key. Your past explains you, but it does not excuse you. That is the line. That is the dividing point. Your past may have shaped your fear. Your past may have wounded your confidence. Your past may have delayed your progress, but your past does not get to sign the permission slip for your future. You do not need their permission. You don't need your old story's permission. You don't need your environment's permission. You need responsibility. You need decision. You need movement. Look at how people stay stuck. They talk about the same hurt for years, but they never change one habit. They complain about being broke, but they never learn how to manage money. They say they want growth, but they keep feeding their mind with excuses. They say they're waiting for the right time, but the right time never comes because they're hiding behind delay. That is not a timing problem. That is a discipline problem. It's not about pain. It's about response. Own it. Face it. Move. That is how you break the cycle. Owning it means you stop outsourcing your life. You stop saying, they ruined me. No, they may have hurt you, but they do not own you. Facing it means you look at your habits honestly. You ask hard questions. What am I repeating? What am I avoiding? What am I using as an excuse? Moving means you take the next step anyway. Not later, not after the mood changes, now. You have a choice. That choice may be small today. Get up early. Apply for the job. Make the call. Finish the task. Save the money. Read the page. Train the body. Speak the truth. Start the plan. Small choices become identity. Identity becomes behavior. Behavior becomes destiny. That's the key. No more excuses, only execution. And execution is not emotional. Execution is not dramatic. Execution is not waiting for a breakthrough feeling. Execution is doing what must be done while your mind is still complaining. That is where power is built. Not in speeches, in decisions. Not in excuses, in repetition. Not in blame, in action. So stop rehearsing your pain like it's your identity. It is not your identity. Stop using your wounds as your excuse. They are your history, not your sentence. You have a choice. Take it. Because this book is about one thing only, changing the way you think so you can change the way you live. And the first change is this: stop thinking like a victim. You mastered responsibility. Now let's move into the next shift, the silent trap that keeps people performing for approval instead of building real power.
Chapter 2. Kill the need for validation. Stop asking the crowd to approve what your future requires. That is the next shift. Because one of the fastest ways to destroy your potential is to live for applause, to chase likes, to wait for agreement, to measure your worth by other people's reactions. Validation feels harmless, but it is a silent addiction. And once you're addicted to being approved, you stop being original. You stop being bold. You stop being free. Stop asking to be accepted. Start becoming undeniable. That is the key. Not liked, not praised, not understood by everyone. Undeniable. Because the people who change the world do not wait for permission. They move. They build. They create. They speak. They decide. And while others are busy asking, what will they think? They're already in motion. Look at social media. People post for approval, not expression. They shape their image to get attention, not truth. They become prisoners of reaction. One comment boosts them. One silence breaks them. One unfollow changes their mood. That is not confidence. That is dependence. And dependence makes you weak. You have a choice. You can keep performing for people who are not paying your bills, healing your pain, or building your destiny. Or you can remove their opinion from the throne. That's the key. The opinion of the crowd should never sit above the calling on your life. Not every voice deserves influence. Not every reaction deserves attention. Not every critic deserves a response. Stop asking to be accepted. Start becoming undeniable. In the workplace, people-pleasing looks polite on the outside, but it is often fear on the inside. You say yes when you mean no. You stay silent when you should speak. You shrink your ideas so nobody feels uncomfortable. But shrinking yourself does not make you safe. It makes you invisible. And invisible people do not lead. Invisible people do not grow. Invisible people do not change anything. Confidence is built in private before it is seen in public. That's where the real work happens, when nobody claps, when nobody notices, when nobody is watching. That's when you build the mind. That's when you rehearse the courage. That's when you practice standing alone. Because public confidence without private conviction is fake. It collapses under pressure. Stop asking to be accepted. Start becoming undeniable. You need to ask yourself hard questions. Why do I need everyone to agree with me? Why do I panic when someone disagrees? Why do I change my position to stay liked? The moment you start needing approval, you start losing power. And power is not built by being convenient. Power is built by being certain, clear, grounded, unmoved. You do not need their permission. You do not need their praise to begin. You do not need their understanding to continue. You do not need their applause to stay committed. You need identity. You need conviction. You need discipline. Because the strongest people in the world are not the most approved, they're the most anchored. So today, stop negotiating your life with people who are not qualified to lead it. Stop performing. Stop chasing. Stop trying to be universally liked. Choose truth over attention. Choose growth over image. Choose direction over approval. You have a choice. And that choice is simple. Stay dependent on opinions or become so rooted in your purpose that opinions lose their power. That's the shift. That's the freedom. That's the key. Stop asking to be accepted. Start becoming undeniable.
Chapter 3. Think long-term or stay stuck. Think years, not minutes. That is the difference between a life that grows and a life that repeats. Short-term thinking feels easy. It feels comfortable. It feels satisfying right now. But right now is not the measure of a strong life. Right now is where bad habits survive. Right now is where weak decisions hide. Right now is where people trade the future for a feeling. And that trade always gets expensive. You have a choice.
You can spend your energy on instant comfort, or you can invest it in future strength. That's the key. People who think only about today make emotional decisions. They overspend because they want relief. They quit because they want ease. They ignore their health because they want pleasure. They delay learning because they want entertainment. Then they wonder why their life never changes. Think years, not minutes. That applies first to money. A short-term mind spends to feel better. It buys what it cannot afford. It reacts to stress by shopping, eating, scrolling, escaping. But a long-term mind asks a different question. What will this choice cost me later? That question changes everything. It protects your future. It saves your peace. It keeps your life from becoming a series of emergencies created by impulse. The same is true for skill building. If you only care about immediate results, you will quit quickly, because real skill takes repetition. Real skill takes boredom. Real skill takes time. You do not become excellent in a day. You become excellent by staying in the room long after excitement disappears. That's the key. The future belongs to people who can wait, build, and keep going. Say it again. The future belongs to people who can wait, build, and keep going. Not people who panic, not people who quit, not people who need every reward immediately. The future belongs to the disciplined, to the patient, to the focused. So stop living like tomorrow does not matter. It matters. Your next year matters. Your next 5 years matter. Your next decade matters. And the choices you make now are writing that story already. Think years, not minutes. You have learned to own your life. You have learned to stop chasing approval. Now you must learn to think like someone who wants a real future.
Chapter 4. Act before you feel ready. Ready is not a feeling. Ready is a decision. That is the truth most people refuse to accept. They sit, they wait, they polish, they overthink. They tell themselves they are preparing, but what they are really doing is hiding. Hiding behind perfection, hiding behind fear, hiding behind the lie that one more day, one more course, one more plan, one more improvement will finally make them ready. It will not. Movement creates clarity. That is the key. Not waiting, not analyzing forever, not trying to think your way into confidence. Action comes first. Clarity comes after. Confidence comes after. Momentum comes after. Most people reverse the order and stay stuck for years. They think certainty should come before motion. It does not. You move first. You learn while moving. That is how progress is built. You have a choice. You can wait for perfect conditions that never arrive, or you can begin with what you have. That's the key. The people who build real lives do not begin with perfect timing. They begin with imperfect courage. They launch before they feel polished. They speak before they feel fully confident. They start before motivation shows up. And because they start, they improve. Ready is not a feeling. Ready is a decision. Look at the person who keeps delaying the business idea, the portfolio, the application, the content, the conversation, the opportunity. They keep saying, "I'm almost ready." No, they are not almost ready. They're almost honest. The truth is they're afraid to be seen while still learning. They are afraid to fail publicly. They're afraid to look small in the beginning. But every expert was once a beginner, and every beginner must be willing to look unfinished. Move first, adjust later, learn while doing. That is the formula. You do not need to master the whole path before you take the first step. You need to take the first step to reveal the path. That is how growth works. You will not understand everything in advance. You will not have every answer. You will not know exactly how it ends. But that is not a reason to stop. That is a reason to begin. Think about speaking. Many people have valuable ideas, but they stay silent because they want perfect wording. They want their voice to sound impressive. They want every sentence to land perfectly.
so they say nothing. Then someone less talented but more decisive speaks, and opportunity goes there. Confidence is built by speaking, not by waiting. Speaking before confidence appears is how confidence appears. Think about launching. A lot of people want to perfect the logo, the website, the plan, the packaging, the presentation, the strategy, and while they're polishing details, someone else enters the market, learns from the real world, and gets better faster. You do not need perfect. You need live feedback. You need movement. You need evidence. That's the key. Ready is not a feeling. Ready is a decision. Even motivation works this way. If you wait until you feel inspired, you will become a slave to your mood. But if you begin while uninspired, discipline starts to form. And once discipline starts to form, progress becomes predictable. That is power. That is freedom. That is maturity. So stop asking, am I ready? Ask, am I willing? Am I willing to begin imperfectly? Am I willing to be corrected? Am I willing to look awkward before I look skilled? Am I willing to be a beginner long enough to become dangerous? That is the real question. You have a choice. Stay in the fantasy of preparation or enter the reality of growth. One keeps you safe and stagnant. The other makes you stronger. One protects your ego. The other builds your future. Move first, adjust later, learn while doing. That is the formula. You do not need to master the whole path before you take the first step. You need to take the first step to reveal the path. That is how growth works. You will not understand everything in advance. You will not have every answer. You will not know exactly how it ends. But that is not a reason to stop. That is a reason to begin.
Chapter 5. Protect your mind like your life depends on it. Guard your mind. Guard your future. That is not a slogan. That is a survival rule. Because what enters your mind does not stay harmless. It shapes your beliefs. Your beliefs shape your habits. Your habits shape your results. And before long, your life begins to reflect the very things you allowed in repeatedly. That is why attention is a battlefield. You are not just consuming content, you are being formed by it. A strong life cannot grow inside a noisy, polluted mind. That is the key. Not a distracted mind, not an overfed mind, not a mind constantly flooded with gossip, fear, comparison, outrage, and nonsense. A polluted mind cannot produce clear decisions. A drained mind cannot build a strong future. A mind that is always reacting has no power left to create. So you have a choice. You can protect your mind, or you can poison your future. Look at toxic content. It may entertain you, but it also trains you. It trains your attention to chase noise. It trains your emotions to respond to chaos. It trains your standards to become lower. People think it is just scrolling. No, it is conditioning. It is repetition. It is mental input becoming mental identity. Guard your mind. Guard your future. Look at negative conversations. Some rooms do not build you, they weaken you. Some people do not inspire growth, they normalize failure. They feed complaining, they make small thinking sound smart. And if you stay in that environment long enough, you start sounding like the same life you said you wanted to escape. That is how minds are shaped, slowly, quietly, repeatedly. That's the key. Guard your mind, guard your future. Look at useless scrolling. Hours disappear, focus disappears, energy disappears. Then people wonder why they cannot think deeply, work consistently, or sit still long enough to build anything meaningful. Because the mind has been fragmented, the attention has been stolen. And once attention is stolen, discipline becomes harder. This is not just about time, it is about mental architecture. What you repeatedly give your mind becomes your inner climate. You have a choice.
You can feed your mind with information that strengthens you, or you can feed it with junk that weakens you. That choice changes everything. Read better things, watch better things, speak better things, listen to better things. Spend time with people who sharpen you, not people who drain you, because your environment is not background noise, it is programming. A strong life cannot grow inside a noisy, polluted mind. Repeat that until it becomes a rule. A strong life cannot grow inside a noisy, polluted mind. If your mind is constantly full, your life will stay full of confusion. If your mind is constantly distracted, your future will stay unstable. If your mind is constantly entertained, your discipline will stay underdeveloped. You cannot build greatness while feeding distraction every day. Guard your mind. Guard your future. That means getting serious. Mute the noise. Cut the habits that weaken your focus. Stop consuming everything just because it's available. Stop letting every opinion enter your spirit. Stop giving your best attention to the things that will never build your life. Protect what you allow in, because what you allow in will eventually come out as your decisions, your words, your habits, and your destiny. This is how transformation starts. Not by wishing for a better life, by building a better mental diet, by refusing contamination, by becoming selective, by learning that focus is sacred. A clear mind makes strong decisions. Strong decisions make strong habits. Strong habits make a strong life. So guard your mind, guard your future, because the fight for your life starts in your attention. And the stronger your mind becomes, the stronger your results become. You have learned to move, to act, and to think long term. Now it is time to stop choosing comfort and start choosing power.
Chapter 6. Replace comfort with discipline. Discipline is freedom in disguise. That is the truth people avoid because comfort feels easier in the moment. Comfort says, rest again. Comfort says, skip it today. Comfort says, tomorrow will be fine. Comfort feels good, but comfort slowly kills growth. It softens your standards. It weakens your edge. It teaches your mind to avoid resistance. And a life that avoids resistance never becomes strong. You have a choice. You can keep protecting your comfort, or you can start building your character. That's the key. Because discipline is not punishment. Discipline is self-respect in action. It is the daily proof that your future matters more than your mood. It is the decision to do what needs to be done even when emotions say no. Discipline is freedom in disguise. Think about waking up on time. A comfortable mind says, just 5 more minutes. A disciplined mind says, get up. Think about finishing the task. Comfort says, you can leave it half done. Discipline says, complete it. Think about training the body. Comfort says, rest first. Discipline says, move first. Think about the work that matters. Comfort says, I do not feel like it. Discipline says, do it anyway. That is the battle. It is not really about one alarm clock. It is not really about one workout. It is not really about one assignment, one deadline, one email, one habit. It is about identity. Are you the kind of person who obeys your feelings or the kind of person who leads them? That's the key. Do it tired. Do it bored. Do it anyway. Because discipline is not tested when you're excited. Discipline is tested when you're drained. It is tested when the room is quiet. It is tested when nobody is clapping. It is tested when the reward is not immediate. And that is exactly where growth begins. A weak life is built on mood. A strong life is built on standards. That's the difference. People who rely on comfort stay inconsistent. They only work when they feel good. They only show up when it's easy. They only push when there's pressure. But people who live by discipline create momentum even on bad days.
They know the feeling will pass, but the habit remains. They know the reward comes later. They know the body, the mind, the career, the relationships all respond to repetition. You have a choice. You can be loyal to comfort, or you can be loyal to your calling. Comfort will always ask for more time. Discipline will ask for more truth. Comfort will keep you safe and small. Discipline will make you capable and free. That's the trade. Discipline is freedom in disguise. You have learned to protect your mind. Now learn to rule your habits. Chapter 7. Stop waiting for motivation. Motivation comes and goes. Standards stay. That is the truth people need to accept if they want a real transformation. Motivation is not a foundation. It is a spark. It appears, then it disappears. It feels powerful, then it fades. And if your life depends on something that changes with your mood, your life will stay unstable. You cannot build a future on temporary emotion. You need something stronger. You need systems. You need habits. You need identity. You have a choice. You can keep waiting to feel inspired, or you can become the kind of person who moves without negotiation. That's the key. Because feelings should never run your life. Feelings are real, but they are not reliable. One day you feel strong. Another day you feel lazy. One day you feel bold. Another day you feel doubtful. If you let feelings lead, your results will always be inconsistent. Motivation comes and goes. Standards stay. Look at the people who only work when inspired. They start fast. They post big goals. They talk with energy. They promise change. Then pressure arrives. Then boredom arrives. Then discomfort arrives. And suddenly they disappear. That is not a discipline issue. That is a dependency issue. They are dependent on the wrong thing. They are dependent on emotion, and emotion will abandon you the moment life gets difficult. Build the routine. Trust the routine. Become the routine. That is how you stop starting over. That is how you stop disappearing. That is how you become dependable, powerful, and unshakable. You have learned to choose discipline over comfort. Now it is time to become the kind of person who finishes what they begin.
Chapter 8. Become the person who finishes. Finish what you start. That is the difference between potential and power. Because quitting in small ways trains your mind to quit in big ways. Every unfinished task sends a message. Every abandoned goal sends a message. Every restart sends a message. And the message is simple. You are someone who leaves things incomplete. That identity is dangerous. You have a choice. You can keep starting over, or you can become the person who finishes. That's the key. Not the person who begins with excitement and disappears with discomfort. Not the person who has 100 intentions and no results. The person who finishes. The person who stays. The person who follows through even when the feeling is gone. Finish what you start. Look at abandoned goals. A notebook filled with plans means nothing if none of them are executed. A shelf of half-done ideas is not progress. It is wasted momentum. And momentum matters, because every time you stop before the end, you teach your mind that stopping is normal. You teach your body to relax at the point of resistance. You teach your spirit to surrender before payoff. That is why so many people stay stuck. They are not failing because they lack talent. They are failing because they do not finish. They start the business, then stop. They start the course, then stop. They start the workout, then stop. They start the book, then stop. They start the habit, then stop. And each stop weakens trust in self. That is the real cost. Not just lost time, lost identity. Finish what you start. The mind needs completion. Completion builds confidence. Completion builds proof. Completion says, I do what I say I will do. That is how power grows. Not through dramatic motivation, through repeated follow-through. That's the key. A finisher is not necessarily the loudest person in the room. A finisher is the one who keeps moving when everyone else gets tired of their own dream. You have a choice. You can stay addicted to beginnings, or you can become loyal to completion. That's the battle. Some people love the excitement of starting because starting feels clean, starting feels possible, starting feels impressive. But finishing requires endurance. Finishing requires boredom. Finishing requires problem solving. Finishing requires patience. And that is where many people fold. A finisher is dangerous. A finisher is rare. A finisher wins. Say that again. A finisher is dangerous. A finisher is rare. A finisher wins. Because the world is full of ideas. It is full of plans. It is full of talent. What is rare is consistency. What is rare is follow-through. What is rare is a person who can carry something from vision to completion without breaking their own promise. Think about repeated restarts. Every restart is expensive. It resets confidence. It resets progress. It resets rhythm. It resets belief. And over time, it creates a life of frustration. You are always almost there, but never through. That is not a progress problem. That is a finishing problem. Finish what you start. That means you stop negotiating with distraction. You stop abandoning the hard middle. You stop expecting every task to feel exciting. You stop using boredom as a reason to quit. Boredom is not failure. Boredom is a test. The people who pass the test become strong. The people who fail stay beginners forever. That is why finishing must become identity. Not I completed one thing, not I was productive for a day. Identity. I am a finisher. That changes your decisions. That changes your standards. That changes your future. Because once you see yourself as the kind of person who finishes, quitting starts to feel foreign. You do not need more starts. You need more endings, more completed projects, more fulfilled promises, more disciplined follow-through, more evidence that your word means something. That is how trust in self is rebuilt. That is how momentum is restored. That is how greatness is formed. Finish what you start, because the person who can finish can be trusted with bigger things, bigger goals, bigger responsibility, bigger impact, bigger life. And that is the point of this book. Not just to think differently, but to become different. You have learned discipline, systems, and consistency. Now let's move to the final shift, the one that makes all the others permanent.
Chapter 9. Choose pain on purpose. That is the next shift, because pain is not the enemy. Unnecessary pain is the enemy. Misplaced pain is the enemy. Avoided pain is the enemy. Growth always has a cost, and the wise person does not ask, how do I avoid all pain? The wise person asks, which pain creates strength, and which pain creates suffering later? That's the key. You have a choice. You can pay now through discipline, or you can pay later through regret. That is the law. Easy now can become expensive later. Comfort now can become collapse later. Avoidance now can become crisis later. So the question is not whether pain will exist. The question is which pain you will choose. Choose the pain that builds you. Think about exercise. It burns, it strains, it demands effort, but that pain builds health, stamina, and resilience. Now think about the pain of illness. It drains you, it limits you, it steals your strength. One pain is investment, the other is consequence. One pain makes you stronger, the other makes you weaker. That's the key. Think about saving money. It hurts to say no. It hurts to delay gratification. It hurts to resist impulse. But that pain builds stability. It builds options. It builds peace. Now think about debt. Debt feels easy at first. It gives instant relief. It gives the illusion of comfort. But later it demands stress, pressure, and fear.
Easy now can become expensive later. Choose the pain that builds you. You will feel resistance when you begin. That is normal. The body resists effort, the mind resists change, the ego resists discomfort. But resistance is not a stop sign. It is a signal that growth is happening. The person who learns to stay inside the right pain becomes dangerous in the best way. Strong, stable, hard to shake. Look at the opposite. The person who always chooses comfort becomes fragile. They break under pressure. They panic when life gets hard. They collapse when discipline is required. Why? Because they trained themselves to run from the very thing that would have made them stronger. That is why easy now can become expensive later. You have a choice. You can tolerate temporary discomfort for permanent strength, or you can choose temporary comfort and inherit permanent weakness. That's the key. The strong life is rarely the easy life. The powerful life is rarely the convenient life. The meaningful life is rarely the pain-free life. But it is worth it, every time. Choose the pain that builds you. Choose the hard workout instead of the slow decline. Choose the budget instead of the burden. Choose the conversation instead of the silent damage. Choose the habit instead of the chaos. Choose the effort now, because the bill always comes due, and when it comes due, it will either be paid in discipline or paid in regret. That is the rule. Easy now can become expensive later. Repeat it. Easy now can become expensive later. That sentence can save a life. It can save a marriage. It can save a future. It can save a dream. Because the person who understands this stops asking life to be painless and starts asking life to be purposeful. So do not fear pain. Select it, direct it, use it. Let pain become your teacher instead of your punishment. Choose the pain that builds you. You have learned to finish what you start. Now it is time to become the person whose identity drives every action.
Chapter 10. Rebuild your identity first. Become it before you see it. That is the final shift, the shift that makes every other shift permanent. Because lasting transformation does not begin with goals, it begins with identity. Goals tell you where you want to go. Identity determines whether you stay on the path long enough to get there. Most people focus on outcomes. They say, I want to lose weight. I want to make more money. I want to become successful. I want to be confident. But wanting is not enough. You do not consistently do what you want. You consistently do what you believe you are. That is the key. A person who believes they are unhealthy will always find a way back to unhealthy habits. A person who believes they are irresponsible will always find a way back to procrastination. A person who believes they're a quitter will always find a reason to quit. The behavior follows the identity. Become it before you see it. That is how real change happens. Do not start by asking, what do I want? Start by asking, who do I need to become? Because once identity changes, behavior starts to align with it. Think about reading. Most people say, I want to read more books. That sounds good, but it is weak. A stronger statement is, I am a reader. A reader reads, not because they feel inspired, not because they are motivated, not because someone reminds them. They read because that is who they are. That is the difference. Become it before you see it. Think about leadership. Many people want influence, they want respect, they want authority. But leaders do not become leaders when people start following them. Leaders become leaders when they start taking responsibility. Before anyone else sees it, before anyone else believes it, before there is proof, they become it first. Then the world catches up. That is the key. Think about building. Some people spend years talking about ideas. Others spend years building them. What separates them? Identity. One sees themselves as a dreamer. The other sees themselves as a builder. Builders build, even when it is difficult, even when nobody notices, even when results are slow, because they are acting from identity, not emotion. Become it before you see it. Think about discipline. A person who says, I am trying to be disciplined, is still negotiating. A person who says, I am disciplined, has made a decision. Now every action is measured against that identity. When the alarm rings, they get up. When the work appears, they begin. When resistance shows up, they continue. Why? Because disciplined people do disciplined things. That is who they are. You have a choice. You can keep chasing results while ignoring identity, or you can rebuild yourself from the inside out. That is the key. The strongest identities are built through promises. Promises made, promises kept. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you cast a vote for a new identity. You say you will wake up early, you do it. You say you will finish the task, you do it. You say you will train, you do it. You say you will learn, you do it. Little by little, evidence accumulates, and eventually you stop hoping you are becoming someone different. You know you are. Become it before you see it. That is how confidence is built. That is how discipline is built. That is how success is built. Not by waiting for proof, by creating proof through action. This entire book has led to this moment. You stopped thinking like a victim. You stopped chasing validation. You started thinking long-term. You acted before you felt ready. You protected your mind. You replaced comfort with discipline. You stopped waiting for motivation. You became someone who finishes. You learned to choose the pain that builds you. And now you understand the final truth. Everything changes when identity changes, because identity is the root. Habits are the branches. Results are the fruit. Change the root, and the fruit changes automatically. Become it before you see it. Not tomorrow, not someday. Today, right now. Make the decision. Choose the identity. Live it daily, and watch your life begin to align with the person you have decided to become. Identity drives behavior. Behavior builds destiny. Now you understand the truth. Your life changes when your mind changes, and your mind changes when your standards change. Stop thinking like a victim. Stop begging for validation. Stop living for comfort. Stop waiting to feel ready. Start thinking long-term. Start protecting your mind. Start choosing discipline. Start acting before motivation arrives. Start finishing what you begin. Start choosing pain on purpose. Start becoming the person before you demand the results. That's the shift. That's the work. That's the difference between repeating your life and transforming it overnight. Now take this message seriously, apply it immediately, and prove to yourself that you are done staying the same. Like this video and subscribe to MindShift Audiobooks.